Another thing you can think about when you are trying to bring out your ethereal essence is sort of thinking about some feature that you might have that reads quite ethereal or kind of strange, right? So that looks really cool all the time. For example, Mila Kunis has these light colored eyes with her pretty relatively high contrast look. So you'd expect for her to have dark brown eyes with her coloring, but she has these hazel green type of eyes. And to bring that out in a low contrast look and also have a peaceful look, a peaceful facial expression to your face, that looks really quite ethereal because she's highlighting that sort of unexpected element to her look, which is her eye color. So that's another thing you could consider if you have something like that about your overall look. If you have maybe darker eyes for your complexion, then maybe you should, maybe bright blue eyes, or maybe you have some hazel eyes and dark hair, then that could all look really cool if you emphasize that. And if you do have interesting eyes like Mila does, you probably are already emphasizing it, but emphasizing it in a low contrast look can always add a little bit of an ethereal essence to the quality of the look. And again, the peaceful look, right? So here we have Lucy Liu, and Lucy Liu is not necessarily seen as ethereal in any way, right? So Lucy Liu is a dramatic in the body typing system, and here she's wearing some of her own lines with this stiff fabric and the oversized geometrics and also some sharpness to that, and she just looks really amazing. So even if you don't see this as ethereal, you already think she looks amazing. And she also looks ethereal here mostly because she has that peaceful facial expression, and that is just so important for ethereal. So how about Naomi Watts? Again, Naomi Watts is a soft classic. Oh, soft classics are so boring. Soft classics, oh my gosh. Naomi Watts, she doesn't have any ethereal essence. But actually, if you Google image Naomi Watts photo shoot, she often looks quite ethereal in her photo shoots, and it's not because she has, quote, ethereal essence officially. Essence is something that you can bring out. It's a quality to you that you can bring out. It's the way that you behave, it's the way that you move, it's the way of your facial expressions, it's everything put together. And again, that's why it's a part of why Cate Blanchett can read as quite ethereal. But you can see that, and you know, it's the same way with elegance, right? Elegant is not classic. Elegant is not a classic body type. Elegance is the way that you carry yourself. It's the way that you act. It's your facial expressions. It's the way that you speak and everything like that. Elegant people, when they just put on a simple t-shirt and jeans, they're still going to come off as elegant because they have this elegant essence. That's a whole other topic. And if you guys are interested in elegance, then leave a comment down below. I'm so surprised to hear about elegance being spoken about in such a way that it's all about what you wear. And it's not really only about what you wear, just like ethereal essence isn't only about what you wear, it's also how you come off, right? So anyway, back to Naomi Watts. Naomi Watts, okay, she's not ethereal, she's a soft classic, she just looks pretty normal here, she looks good, she looks great, but she doesn't look ethereal here. But of course, if you find some images of Naomi Watts, all of a sudden she looks quite ethereal because she is really, for her, this kind of low contrast coloring is really lending itself well to her ethereal essence. She already naturally has low contrast coloring. So just like before I talked about whatever kind of special thing you might have, like with your eyes being kind of interesting in color or anything like that, if you want to play that up to bring out your ethereal essence, then that would be really amazing if that's something you're interested in. But here she just plays up her low contrast coloring and pairing that with some lightweight fabrics, some weightless fabrics. That is always going to read as ethereal because weightlessness is sort of an otherworldly quality. The low contrast look is an otherworldly quality because it makes her look like she's in the distance. And at the same time, if you don't think that this is ethereal, if for some reason you're like, yeah, I don't get it, I don't think it's ethereal, it doesn't match any archetypes that I know of, and it's not really, you know, you might have a different culture, you might not think that this is ethereal because it doesn't match an archetype that you have associated over time from your culture. So that's the whole archetype discussion. But if you don't see this as ethereal, you're still going to see her as looking really, really good because she's still honoring her soft classic lines. So her hair is pretty neat, her top is pretty minimal minimal. It does have some of those, that detailing around the sleeve, but overall it just looks really good on her regardless of if you think it's ethereal or not. And here it's the same way, right? Here she also is doing the low contrast coloring, and her hair is really soft, but it's also neat. So even if you don't think this look is ethereal, you still think it looks really, really wonderful because she's honoring her soft classic lines. But of course, again, going back to this, where Kara is not honoring her dramatic lines and she didn't really hit the mark with the ethereal thing, now she just looks kind of strange. She doesn't really really fit an archetype, and so now we're just focusing on how those lines don't look good on her. That's basically, to put it bluntly, sort of what I think is going on with Kira's look. But with Naomi's look, she does look ethereal in this case, and she also has this peaceful look to her again, and she has the soft classic lines there as well, with the symmetrical look, with her hair being pretty neat and a little bit soft with some rounded edges. So overall, that just looks amazing on her. Some other quick examples: Zhang Ziti is a classic. She is a pure classic, and here she looks quite ethereal, even though you wouldn't really say that she is an ethereal type necessarily. And it's this, again, this peaceful look, and the lightweight fabrics, the light colored lightweight fabrics that always will look ethereal. So here we have Zooey Deschanel, and she looks quite ethereal here. In this case, she's kind of mixing an archetype with a peaceful look, with bringing out one of her unique features that's quite interesting about her. So the archetype is this kind of innocence, right? This kind of little girl almost that we find so precious. So even that is an archetype in and of itself, because society kind of values little girls so much because of their innocence, and children in general because of their innocence. But here, of course, she's a woman, so she looks like a little bit more of a little girl with the ingenue thing and with the bangs, and that is really going to make us think of this kind of very precious sort of thing. And then she also has the accentuation of her eyes, which are really quite bright, so that adds more ethereal elements, and she has a peaceful look to her, so that to her facial expression. So that makes the entire look very, very ethereal for Zooey. But I think where we can get into trouble is when we think that ethereal typology is a replacement for the body types. And again, the difference between ethereal and body types is that ethereal is a type of style, and body types are a set of lines that can be any style. They can be badass, they can be elegant, they can be ethereal. And a lot of you guys even commented on my previous video on how to find your style that you want me to talk about ethereal typology, and that ethereal typology was included in that video. And it really wasn't included in that video in any specific way, except for the fact that I included it as an aspect of this person's style. So that's how I think of ethereal. And I remember before I knew my body type, I was really frustrated. I was really frustrated with finding what body type I was. And because of that, I found stuff online about basically how the body typing system is incomplete because it doesn't include ethereal essences, and actually ethereal is, and essences, and especially ethereal, is a sort of replacement for finding your body type. I don't think that's true whatsoever. I don't think that it will replace finding your body type whatsoever, because the body type is a set of lines that is the cornerstone for your look, and it's going to ensure that everything you wear looks amazing on you all the time, whether you go for an elegant style, whether you go for an ethereal style or an ingenue cute style or anything like that. So in that way, I think it is important to differentiate the objectivity, so to speak, of body types. And I say objectivity because I think of body types as the harmony that you create within your own lines, and it crosses all cultural boundaries. It's just like certain notes sounding good together, certain musical notes sounding good together, so those make up chords, right? So in that way, body typing is like that. It crosses cultural boundaries, and the music that you make out of those notes is your personal style, and ethereal is one of those things, right? Ethereal is a personal style, and that is how I see it. So I don't think that it's a replacement in any way. I think it can be used in combination, and I think that would be really awesome if you are interested in looking ethereal. Not everyone's interested in looking ethereal, but if you are, then working within your own lines is something that is really awesome, right? And I often will give, for the style report, there are style recommendations included with that, so I'll give some sorts of some recommendations if someone really comes off as ethereal, if they read like they have an ethereal essence, how they can incorporate those with their own lines. So that's sort of how I see it. That's how I do it with my clients. And I would obviously I would highly recommend that you sort of see ethereal essence the same way, because it can get kind of tricky if you are using it as a replacement for body type, because it never was, because it's not a set of lines, it's a certain style. But I do think that they are cultural. So another thing is that I was thinking about that myself, and I was thinking, well, you know, I was looking through images of Taylor Swift, and I found this image, and to me, this image of Taylor looks a little bit ethereal. And it's really interesting because I would call this, you know, now I can make up a cultural archetype of my own. I can say that this is the Gatsby ethereal, because Taylor Swift here looks like, you might know what I mean, this kind of very delicate American upper class woman, right? So this is the Gatsby ethereal. Daisy from The Great Gatsby is the Gatsby ethereal, right? So now we have the Gatsby ethereal in American culture. And that's something that is, you might see that ethereal type of look in Taylor in this specific image, and she's paired it with a peaceful look. So now she looks peaceful facial expression, so now she looks ethereal here, right? So it is very, very cultural, and all archetypes are cultural. For example, angels. Angels are heavily cultural. The only reason why we think, or the main reason why we think angels or an angel type look or a Victorian type look is ethereal is in large part because of this sort of angel idea. Why is even being far in the distance considered ethereal, the low contrast look of being far in the distance? Probably because angels are floating away, right? So that's sort of why a low contrast look could come off as ethereal. But if we didn't have this image of angels floating away in the distance, wearing Victorian lightweight fabrics, then maybe low contrast wouldn't even look that ethereal, right? But angels are something that people know of all over the world, and so because of the Christian faith sort of being pretty much everywhere all over the world. So the angel archetype is really a strong archetype that crosses a lot of cultural boundaries. But with something like Gatsby ethereal, which I just made up, you know, again, something that some people might see, some people might not, because that's a very culture specific archetype. It's not something that crosses cultural boundaries. But again, something that will cross all cultural boundaries because it's not cultural at all is the body types, right? Is the lines that look good on you, regardless of the culture. It's more objective. It's kind of like notes in a musical chord, right? Something to touch on super briefly is also that there are other ways to look ethereal. So there's like more yang ethereal types of looks, and you can see that Nina looks kind of more ethereal here, but she doesn't have a low contrast look. She actually has a high contrast look here, and the piercing sort of stare that she has, and that can read as sort of a yang ethereal. So I don't know, I had this image of Nina, I thought that was sort of interesting. I don't even have that much more to say about it, but ethereal typology is really complex and really interesting, really cultural with its archetypes, and very culture specific, and at the same time it can be really powerful because it can distract from not wearing your own lines in a good way, but it can also be really powerful because if it looks weird on you, it might look really weird on you instead of just a little bit weird. So it's a really interesting topic overall. I'd be curious to know what you guys think. If this is something that's interesting to you, comment down below, and also comment if you like the idea of me talking about some things about elegance and things like that on my channel as well. I think that might be kind of interesting because I have some thoughts on that too, just like with ethereal typology. So let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will talk to you next time.